two type shit. Let me look and see. My man, Bass God is keeping us trim, bro. Bass
All right,
God, stay blessing us.
we
Yep.
good now.
All right, man. What's the deal, man? Happy New Year to everybody. I got my people here. Respect My Region, Drops Media. We here for a very special occasion, man. Before 2023, we gonna run it back on 2022. Spin the block real quick. This is the first ever Droptop Hip-Hop review, year-end review, man. Shout out to y'all for being here with me, man. I'm gonna give myself a round of applause. Give us a round of applause because
Hey.
you know what I'm saying? This is a moment. This is a moment. Again, like I said, Drops Media here, Devon Jefferson. I'm gonna pass it over to my two well-respected colleagues. Let them introduce themselves and speak a little bit about what they do.
What up, man? Mitch from RespectMyRegion.com, cannabis music platform marketing agency. We started a hip hop blog about 10, 11, 12 years ago, something like that. Have evolved much more than that, and not 100% focused on hip hop these days. But obviously, a student of the game, lover of the craft, and spent a lot of time creating content, writing articles, and reviewing music, putting on shows, and hanging out in studios, man. So excited to talk about some of the stuff that came out this year.
Big ups on 10 years, man. Round of applause for that, for real. That's amazing, man. Shout out to y'all.
Shout out to the team. Shout out to the squad. Thank you for having us. Big shout out to Drops Media. Shout out to Encore.
Joey, come on, let the people know who you is, brother.
Oh, my bad. I'm just over here smoking. Yeah, I'm Mitch's partner on Respect My Region. We got the music blog, we got the publication. We sell a little weed in California and in Washington State. We're just happy to be a part of the culture and be supporting and playing our role. We're music lovers. Mitch is a producer and a fan. Grew up on rap and hip hop. My mom bought me my first album. Big shout out to Mike Jones. So you know what I'm saying. I grew up on Mike Jones and 50 Cent and Eminem. Those are my three that I grew up on. You know what I'm saying? And Young Jeezy after that.
Okay.
So
okay.
it's like
All
I'm
right.
a whole different kind of music fan. Been to a lot of concerts, and I was blessed to have met you out here in LA. And I'm excited to see what we do. Ending 2022 here with this is huge, and we got a lot of big things up in 2023. So shout out to Drops Media, Encore, and the world of music because we love this shit.
You already know what it is, man. Real quick before we get into it, man. Another round of applause for Respect My Region weed, man. Y'all out in California, Washington State, make sure y'all go pick that up. It's some gas. Another shout out to Encore, man. Shout out to Encore. If you don't know, now you know. There we go. Red Runs, Legacy Smalls. Respect My Region. You already know what it is. Smoke good dope while you're doing good dope things. Like being on the Encore app, man. Y'all need to check it out. Live, interactive, streaming music app. They use the best developing technology, cutting edge technology and AI and in interactive live performances to bring fans directly into, interactive live experiences, shows. There's all types of non-music events that's happening, podcasts. It's really a dope app, man. It's co-founded by Kid Cudi and you know what I'm saying, another producer. He made How to Make It in America, a real big HBO show. So you know what I'm saying. Shout out to Encore. Glad to really be bringing our the first ever Droptop Hip-Hop year in review to the platform. And with that being said, let's get into it. Let's bring up that first list, man. Real quick, just to give y'all a premise, the Droptop Hip-Hop year in review is basically just again, like I said, spinning the block on 2022. Today for this, specific edition of the Droptop Hip-Hop review, I've asked my two colleagues at Respect My Region to come up with a list of 10 of their favorite albums, what they think are the best, the top albums, top hip hop releases this year. And I've come up with 15, and we kind of gonna go through these. And you know what I'm saying? Some of them we're gonna have crossovers, and I'm gonna pass off to my boys, and you know what I'm saying? They're gonna give you they 2 cents on you know what I'm saying, what they see in the industry as well. 3 different categories for criteria for ranking these albums. You know what I'm saying? They not in really any particular order, but we got criteria. For the criteria, we got concept. So again, the concept of the album, you know what I'm saying, what we really getting from it as far as just like, you know what I'm saying, what really is, the founding, the general purpose of the record, what the music really, gives off, everything from there. Features, that's obviously a big one, especially in, the streaming age, digital age, when everything is hyper connected. Collaboration at the highest level is something that's really important. We're seeing collaborative albums, go number one, which is, historically something that's never really happened. So features are definitely another, big piece of it. And then impact. Overall impact can mean so many different things. It's somewhat subjective, but I think it's a great piece to have as far as the criteria, because you really get to give a piece of your mind about what you think the impact is, or what you think the larger impact will be. You know what I'm saying? So boom, let's get into it right here. This first graphic we're looking at, this is the Drops picks. So this is, Drops Media. These are our picks. You know what I'm saying? This is what we came up with. Just starting right out the gate, we're going to go with Kendrick Lamar, Mr. Morale, and the Big Steppers. I know that was a pick on everybody's list as well. So, before I really get into this one, I really kind of want to hear, Joey, your thoughts, and Mitch, your thoughts, kind of, you know what I'm saying, on that record, and just, just right off the jump, concept wise, what you were really getting from it.
I don't think it was on my list, right? It's like, for me, my list had other artists on it. Kendrick wasn't on that for me. It wasn't that there wasn't good music, wasn't that it was bad. It just wasn't one of the ones that I found in my whip all the time, every day. I find myself, listening to other music instead. Kendrick, when he makes his bangers, I listen to those, but I didn't find that on this project for me. So it just wasn't one of the ones that, in terms of impacted me and what I was doing every day, I didn't see, I wasn't slapping that in the gym, wasn't slapping it in the car like that.
Okay, yeah, Joey, that wasn't on your list. But there's one that's actually on your list that we'll talk about next that I think is on everybody's list. Mitch, real quick, that one was on your list, Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. Talk to me a little bit about, again, like just what you were getting ultimately from the concept of that record, right, when you first, got into it.
Yeah, I mean, Kung Fu Kenny is gonna give you something that you really gotta sit with and digest. You really gotta, spend some time and listen. And he definitely is one of those artists that's gonna give you something that you can listen to multiple times through and find new things, right? And a lot of rap, even good bars, artists that deliver good bars, a lot of stuff can be, and not in a disrespectful way, but like surface level, right? Whereas some guys go crazy with the double entendres and like the stories and following how songs are connected, right? Like whether it's a concept album or just a really, I guess is a concept album, but if you're putting that much thought into it, but Ken's that type of dude that's going to do that. And I think this album was anticipated. Everyone was waiting on it, and I think it delivered. Obviously, like Joey said, it's not, Kendrick kind of stepped away outside of his initial release, Good Kid, Mad City. He's kind of strayed away from, outside of singles here and there, like your slaps that kind of the general public wants, and is, more resorting to just stuff that's feeding people that really want to listen. And I think musically, is really complex and diverse. So I think it's easy to appreciate it as a fan of music, but he's also giving you something deep, So it's like whether you appreciate music and arrangements and melody or appreciate just depth of content, he's fulfilling both of those at a super, super high level. Oh, Devon, we got you, your audio cut out.
Yeah, Mitch, I super appreciate you for you know what I'm saying, let me know I was on mute. I was going to town. But I definitely agree with you heavily on that, on your response. I also could kind of, feel where Joey was coming from as well, because, I think that this one is certainly kind of like that spoonful of medicine, right? So I think that it's right to take at the right time, right? And for whoever it is, the right time could be any time. But I think, in general, just right off the bat, when I, think about this album, I kind of think about what Kendrick had said about it. And there were a couple headlines that ran earlier this year, but basically Kendrick had said that Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers to him was like the prize for humanity, right?
Mm.
And I think that that's really cool because we kind of talked a little bit about this the other night when we were planning this, Mitch, that progressively throughout Kendrick Lamar's discography you can see the purposefulness and the intent in him using his influence to again give that dose of medicine, right, with the
Mhm.
music, right? Obviously he has those bangers, he has DNA, Element, Humble, Swimming Pools, there's those bangers, right? But then there are records that are just crazy, like especially we go to this album, like United in Grief. That one was just a
Mhm.
crazy intro. I think that Savior was just deep. Auntie's Diaries, obviously, just crazy. But I mean, more, just overall, concept wise, I think this, and I think it kind of correlates with it being Kendrick Lamar's exit album out of TDE, that this was really like, in a sense, him at the pinnacle of his decisiveness and how to mobilize his influence to move the needle. And I think that that's kind of what Kendrick has always done with his music. You look at like his debut album and just what it did for the game, what it did for the West Coast, right? It seems as though his releases, as much as he's, you know, just coming from a personal standpoint of artistry, he's also, trying to push the genre forward, push himself forward, push, the brand forward. And I definitely think that he did that with this. And again, it's just crazy how this album came together, especially after the more than the years long wait, 3-4 years. The range of features on here is crazy. Like
Mhm.
Die Hard with Blast and Amanda Reifer is crazy, but then you have like Sampha's on here. Sampha's probably one of the top vocalists of our generation, to be honest. um the Kodak Black feature, um is just wild. Like, who would have thought that Kendrick and Kodak Black would, mesh together so well? Purple Hearts, you know what I'm saying, with Summer Walker. There's just so many layers to the features on here. You can tell it was very like handpicked and methodical, and just I think just overall just right in pocket for what Kendrick is. And I mean that just goes with the impact. I think it just goes back to with what I had said earlier. um you know Kendrick is very much so, it seems, about like about progressing forward, about being the best, highest version of himself. And I think he with the music that he gives to his fans, to the world, to his listeners, he's hoping that they can use that to like kind of vibrate to that same sort of frequency for themselves, whatever that may be. So Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, man, the prize for humanity. Kendrick the man said himself, and I'm rocking with it. I'm standing on it.
Yeah.
I support it. I support it,
Um,
but not on my
before
list.
Go ahead. You said it's just not on your list. I got you.
Just
I
not on
feel
my list. He can be on anyone's list in any given moment, but in terms of like I'm happy with what I got.
right. I think that one of the ones that was actually on your list, we could talk about it now. One of the ones that I think was on your list that was also on our list, Joey, was Her Loss.
Hmm.
Mitch, was Her Loss on your list, right?
Yeah, 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 definitely.
So, real quick, I wanted to get, before we kind of really start on that, we talk about like again this idea of like collaboration. Obviously, artists are collaborating at the highest level and more frequently, and we're seeing a lot more superstars link up together and stuff like that. But then again, like I said, you have like collab albums, collab projects, which labels typically in the past were like, these aren't worth it, especially with this between two superstars type of thing. These albums are commercially selling incredibly well, and in the case of Her Loss debuting at number one. What do you guys think as far as for the future of hip hop, rap, what I'm saying, urban music industry as a whole? What does you know, an album like Her Loss with Drake and 21 Savage going #1, what does that do for the future of the game, you know, good or bad?
I think it's all good, man. You know, collab albums have been happening for a long time, like especially like, but more so on the independent level, right? Like the Bay Area has been doing collab albums for the longest, but the problem is, like you talking about a Drake collab albums going #1. You know, Bay Area artists has dropped 40 albums. You know, the general public might be aware of that artist, but they're not aware of every single one of those albums. You know what I mean? And two independent artists collaborating is a totally different story than Drake collaborating with anyone. You know, because like you said, the highest level, Drake is the highest level in the game, whether you like that or not. So him collabing with anyone is major, and I think for an artist of his caliber, he's showing like, you know, he's able to make a lot of different, you know, subgenres of hip hop, and doing a collab album is similar to the mixtape, right? As it serves like, hey, I can just put something together that's dope, but doesn't have like a concept behind it, or I don't need to put it out to be judged of where this is going to fit in mine and the rest of the best artists or biggest artist discographies of like an album and a cohesive sound. It just gives you an opportunity to get some fire music off without like, you know, a little bit of freedom or buffer from judgment. Because if people come for you and be like, oh, it's just a Lucy, wait for the album. You know, it's this buffering point. But in this day and age, with how much people stream and how much we want content, right? And content fuels TikToks, and you know, obviously, every case of Drake, every time he drops, it feels like meme culture for months on end, right? Like it gives it this opportunity to stay in the front of people without having to sacrifice a single, without having to sacrifice an album. You don't got to tour the world off it. You don't got to put a crazy marketing budget into it. You can kind of just serve it. And obviously, when you talk about artists again at Drake and 21's level, you don't need, you know, the marketing budget's rather slim compared to their album, because that's just, it's going to take off. It's really just music. They're not doing the global tour behind it, you know. And so I think it's dope in the sense that, you know, there is some drawbacks of the quick burn of consumption of art and music in this day and age. And feeding into that can obviously further perpetuate that, but at the same time, it's just a lever in music that, you know, when there's an artist you like, you just want new stuff from them, more stuff from them, right? And this is what you're getting from that.
Yeah, I have to 100% agree with Mitch from like a business standpoint. You know, I would be one of these guys on their team saying more content, more this and that, make more money, but these guys treat it more like an art in this regard. And so when you blend the art and whatnot, it is, you know, it's a fun project that they can do together. You know, they've got a direction. It had a general wrapped theme together with it all. Not every one of these collabs does that. Sometimes it's just, you know, have really just, you know, going out there and doing it, and you know, you're there doing a project together out of nowhere. But this, you know, was a collab thing that really made sense. I actually reviewed the album on our website, and was thoroughly a fan of what, you know, was created. And obviously the impact, the sale, the velocity in which it rose to how big it got, it's pretty undeniable. And that's where, you know, previously, you know, I don't want to beat a dead horse on the Kendrick thing, but there was such the quality of what Kendrick makes sometimes is that medicine that not enough people like. Whereas to some people, Drake is that medicine for them, and that many people consumed that medicine this time, you know? And I listened to the one project and I listened to the other project, and it's not like I don't want this versus that. And it's just like, damn, I had this much more listens on these projects versus the other. And Her Loss, still to this day, man, is still getting slapped to 2 or 3 of those songs. I don't change it when I hear it, you know? And that's something to be said about, you know, that particular project this year. Plus, 21 Savage really killed it on a lot of that. They had fun with that. You could tell they had fun with it.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting to me. You know, I kind of wanted to bring up a point that, like concept wise, for Her Loss, for me, like it was interesting to see like the marriage at a real high level of those two sonic profiles of like there being records that are like Drake songs, like, you know, Spin About You is like a Drake song, like a you know, I would say like a um either Views era or Nothing Was the Same era. That's kind of like a Drake type record, you know what I mean? Or like Hours in Silence. That's definitely like a Views era, like Drake type record to me. But you know, then there's like 21 Savage records on here. There's like records that he's on, that he's leading, that he's spearheading, that like really give off like Savage Mode 2, you know, like. And I think that, you know, obviously that was a defining record for 21, where I think it showed people that, like, you know, it's not a fluke. Like, he truly can, you know, hold his own and elevate within his own, you know, especially the way that we've seen Drake like really just create his own world from
Yeah.
like a fucking sound, from like a real sound composition, you know, like a production, you know, type of standpoint. You know, we were able to see 21 really do that with Savage Mode 2, you know, with Metro. And I feel like, again, with this project, even though it's like where he's, you know, opposite of, you know, arguably the highest, you know, height in hip hop, he's holding his own, but not only holding his own, evolving within his own at the same right.
They
So
made each other
yeah,
doper, and the production made each other, all of them, dope. And then you could tell they had fun because they were making that tight of shit. Like, it was all dope as fuck. Like, every single one of those tracks was a great version of itself. And the production, the storytelling, the wordplay. I mean, yeah, the review was fun to write because I got to listen to that for like 3 hours straight and just figure it out.
impact wise, this time next year, how do you think and obviously that's like a super wide open subjective, but just based on how you feel about the record right now, this time next year, how do you think it could hold up to, you know, the test of time? Maybe, you know, at the end of the year, how do you think you know, it could hold up to, you know, possible competition, possible records that, you know, could come, should come, will come, right?
I
I mean,
think,
I'm not.
yeah, I think, you know, depth wise, content wise, it's not going to hold up, but that's not what we want from it. You know, as far as like still getting plays, still getting slapped. I definitely think it will. Obviously, not at the same rate. When this drop, you know, Joey and I flew out to Chicago and we were laughing. We were out there. Literally every time you stepped on the street, you heard it coming out of a car, at least one car. Every restaurant we went to, the people in the kitchen, you could hear it playing out the kitchen, right? Like when that dropped, it was literally everywhere. Is it going to stay like that? You know, obviously not. But it's still going to be getting played out of Ubers and out of cars and the restaurant kitchens and stuff. That'll definitely be one of those albums that's still getting
The,
burned
the
next year.
the only time that's ever happened before was when Kendrick started getting booming in 2012, 2013, and that kind of shit was happening. Like, the only other artist of that caliber, and Wiz and Too Short, On My Level, like that shit was like young, you know, even back when I was saying young
Let
Jeezy
me
and
let me add one.
everywhere.
I think when J. Cole dropped KOD, I feel like that was a time when that happened
Agreed,
too.
agreed.
I remember the weekend that joint dropped. It was crazy. I thought that, like, for a long
Yeah.
time, that like even when J. Cole was like really getting like huge mainstream, I still thought that I was like the only like real J. Cole fan. Not real, but like, you know, heavy avid J. Cole fan that I knew, right? And then I realized it was fucking everybody around me. And I was like, so definitely
Yeah.
there. All right, let's move on to the next joint. I see me and Mitch, we had the Vince Staples Ramona Park Broke My Heart record on there. Let's chop it up about that one, and then we'll let Joey you know, hop on one of his joints.
Yeah, I mean, Vince has really been growing as an artist. You know, when he first came out, I think he was dropping bars and, you know, really spitting, and that's kind of why he picked up kind of initially. But these last couple, I think there's always been some depth to him, like in terms of his artistry. Um, but that last album he did, you know, really stood apart sonically and just sound wise, while still being just like unapologetically himself, still on, you know, the gangster shit, the not giving a fuck, like very much West Coast and very much like that like gangster vibe, and not a gangster as in trying to overly gratify and glorify, like much more like just really real and just being real. And I think he really found something on that last one, and it continued into this one. And I think this album this year, Ramona Park Broke My Heart, definitely had a little bit more slap than the last one. I mean, I guess sonically the other one had slap, but this one had a little bit more upbeat vibes to me, but it still just had depth. And it was funny. I was looking at, I don't know if it's most plays or most like biggest songs of the year, and like When Sparks Fly was one of the ones. I think this the highest rated or played, I don't know, track off this album. I can't remember. I was looking at some list, and that really surprised me because like that was a record I personally liked a lot, but I also know historically records like that are a little bit more down tempo or whatever, and just like more classic hip hop, I tend to like those records a lot. And I think artists like those records a lot, like other artists, but the general public doesn't really fuck with them. You know what I mean? They're more on like the club single vibe. And so I thought that anytime I see that, I'm like, damn, if the record I'm really feeling the most off this project is the way everyone else loves, that's like a rare occasion. And I felt like that happened with this album, but I also still liked, I can't remember, it was one of the last songs on there, the one he dropped, like the first single off this project. I can't remember. I still play that one. I got to look it up, man.
I think you're probably talking about Magic with Mustard that's produced by Mustard.
No, no, you're right. That was the first single. It was the second single. Then I liked that song.
Or probably Lemonade. You talking about Lemonade with Ty Dolla $ign?
No, damn, man. See, maybe I'm. Hold on a sec. I'm messing up the whole order of the Rose Street. Damn, that was hard. Rose Street, man. That was my, you know, and I'll be cooking and stuff, man. I'll be putting on slap to just get in the mood, you know what I mean? Crack a beer. That was the joint, man. That was the joint for a minute. I really like that Rose Street record.
I feel you. Man, to kind of add to what you said, I think concept wise, with Ramona Park Broke My Heart, I mean, it's super. Just the title in and of itself is you know, obviously close to home for him and for, you know, millions of other people. But it's just super authentic to who he is as a rapper from the, you know, growing up in the West Coast, you know what I'm saying, coming from the West Coast, and identifying as, you know what I'm saying, an authentic West Coast artist. And I think you really get that with this project through and through in so many different ways, but it's refreshing in the way that he really represents that specific like legacy of the genre of West Coast hip hop throughout this album in so many different forms, right? And I think it's like, you know, from the top of the record, like Free the Homies, for me, that's one of my favorite. That's one of my favorite records. I just love the way that record sounds. It has the bounce. It has, you know what I'm saying, the nuance that's become all too familiar in different, you know, pockets of West Coast hip hop, specifically, you know, Southern California, you know, SoCal hip hop, you know, especially because of how it's driven by, you know, the different neighborhoods and stuff like that. And, you know, I just think it has those elements, and it combines them and blends them in a way that's just, you know, I think is just really, good on the ear. It's easy on the ears, and it's one of the top rated records as well. That Mustard collab, you know, obviously I want Mustard to just like squash everything with like everybody, whether it be YG, whoever, because bro, when Mustard, man, I just really want to see Mustard make like and I know he's been working on his album for a minute, and I know that album is gonna be crazy, but I would just love to see Mustard do like a fucking Gangsta Girls mixtape or something just crazy, you know, like, and just like a LA version, like, you know, and just go crazy with everybody. But I think that's the essence, you know, Magic obviously having that Acura commercial. It's like Vince is really major, you know what I'm saying? But at the same time, being super authentic to like who he is, where he's from, and what's inspired him, and came before him and will be after him, like type of thing, you know. It's just a wonderful way to pay homage to, again, like, you know what I'm saying, that identity of West Coast hip hop. And, you know, so yeah, that's really that for me. Features wise, is really dope to see Vince with, you know, Lil Baby. It's obviously, you know, Ty Dolla $ign is super dope to see, you know, those two, you know, collaborate on that wave. And I mean, overall, Vince really held his own. You know, the features that were on here, they were really, you know, authentic. I think they, you know, highlighted different, you know, parts of his style, and they just worked well. You know what I'm saying? Impact wise, I think that this really adds, you know, kind of like another notch in Vince's belt as far as his discography, because his last couple records have really been, just stand up. You know what I'm saying? From last year, his self-titled Vince Staples album to this album, and I mean the previous, 2018 FM, 2017 Big Fish Theory. He's definitely had some really good projects, and I think that this is, one of the best, if not the best. But we'll go on from there. Real quick, Joey, I want to ask you about one of your picks because I think it's a really dope pick, and it definitely fell from within my reach this go around. But 2 Chainz, Dope Sell Itself.
Come on, man. That was the albums at the beginning of the year always get slept on, and 2 Chainz, because he's been around in the game for so long, he also gets slept on now. It's like if you remember, you remember kind of thing. And he only does certain features now. He's at that level where he don't need no features for his albums to do well, and to generate his tours will do fine. So, but I'm a super 2 Chainz fan for all the way back from 2012, 2011, 2012 for sure. So it was solid. Really enjoyed it. Solid replay value. Listened to it all the way through. Really enjoyed what I heard. Tells stories, poetic in his classic 2 Chainz way. It was an easy one to make sure to include.
Impact wise, how do you think this one stacks up in 2 Chainz discography? Because it's like you said, if you know, and I mean, 2 Chainz has definitely had some incredible projects. We talk about, like, you know what I'm saying, Pretty Girls Like Trap Music, Rapper Go to the League, which and all these albums, when I mention these albums, they're like, it's almost like when 2 Chainz puts out an album, he's like putting out a new franchise of his,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying, brick and mortar, rap establishment that is, basically, symbolic of his career. Like, every new project is just, again, like I said, another stake in the ground of, you know what I'm saying, him being, one of the longest standing, rap acts in the industry. I mean, in the history it is. But again, like I said, you talk about Danielson, The Necklace Don, Pretty Girls Like Trap Music, Rapper Go to the League. You know what I'm saying? So Help Me God, Don't Sell Itself. Where do you think that, you know what I'm saying, impact wise, this stacks up in his discography?
It keeps 2 Chainz in the relevance of he's still personality, branding, creativity, flow, the bars. He's still top tier for what he is. Like, he may not be the best at any one thing, but all of it together makes it great. And that's why 2 Chainz is going to go down as a legend.
Well said. Very well said, man.
It
Shout
doesn't
out
even
to
all of
2 Chainz.
those are equal. I love every one of those differently. They go up and down. Impact, man, it was a great project this year. It was extremely fun to listen to, and I listened to it all the time for, about a month,
Absolutely, absolutely. Real quick before we get on to this next one, again, want to shout out, you know what I'm saying, to my guys, Joey, Mitch at Respect My Region. You know what I'm saying? We here, Drops Media. Again, this is Droptop 2022 hip hop review. We live going through, about to go crazy on Encore. You know what I'm saying? Make sure y'all tune in on the recap show. Another record that I think was on all 3 of our lists was Hit Boy and Nas King's Disease 3. Concept wise, Joey, what really, stood out to you for this collab?
Concept wise, the fact that the concept that Nas went with did so well and had such a big impact for me was really why it landed on my list. I'm not historically the person that listens to Nas all the time, or as Mitch said earlier, you got to give it that time. You got to really digest it and soak it in, right? That's not what I like about rap. I historically wasn't in it for that. Mine was the other more upbeats, fun, party, club, whatever it was, and then kind of worked my way back into understanding that as people told me, to kind of understand it more. For me, it was Nas dropping that, and then the features on the project, and then the fact that Hit Boy's production is crazy dope. It was a quality project from all the way around. So it's like, whatever those guys chose to do concept wise was going to work. But the one that they did go with, and what they ultimately produced and crafted from across the whole project, it was very great. I listened to it, all the way through a few different times. Enjoyed everything that I heard. Found myself, kind of rapping along to it after the first listen or two, because some of it got catchy and some of it was really hard. Some of it was really graphic and also inspiring. Nas is definitely an inspiring individual. So for and the people talked about it nonstop. It blew up the internet. The internet was fucking ablaze about it.
Mitch, you did coverage of Nas King's
Yeah.
disease for Respect My Region. Give us a recap, number one, and then just again general thoughts on concept.
Well, Nas and Hit Boy don't miss, and I might dare I say Hit Boy doesn't miss ever in general. I think he's put on a case for producer of the year probably like 5 years in a straight every year. He's won it once, maybe twice. I know he's won it once. He might have won it twice, and he's probably been cheated at least 1 or 2 other times. So, because I think one of the years I was like, oh, he's gonna be, and I don't think he won, and I was like, there's no way he didn't win this year. But I mean, he's just unreal. The amount of output he's putting. You talk about collab albums. He really is. Obviously he raps himself, but he's starting to brand himself as a producer and do these full albums with people. It's the 4th joint that Nas and Hit Boy have done in 2 years. This one had no features, so I think that was really unique compared to the other ones, and really an extension of just what they've been doing together. I think the first one, and I think even watching an interview with them, they came together just to work on something and ended up making a lot of music and just vibing with one another. Clearly, if they're putting music out and kind of co-promoting it, 4 albums in 2 years. But you look at Nas, it comes from the old school. It comes from dropping an album every other year, tour it, videos, this old school, the old model, right? That a lot of guys had a hard time adjusting to. Folks like Lil Wayne didn't give a fuck and just came volume output, right? And helped pave the way for this new way. But a lot of old guys didn't do that, and obviously you look at Jay-Z, he's doing it every 5 years, J. Cole has grown into that. Kendrick, who we talked about earlier, he's at that point. Doesn't really do a lot of social media. Kind of album every couple years makes a big impact. That's what Nas is from. Nas is easily regarded as the number 1, number 2, number 3, depending on who you ask, best rapper of all time. Not just lyricist, but best rapper of all time. And so to be nearing and in 50s, dropping out 4 albums in 2 years is just, it's crazy. It's breaking the mold of what was originally set. And like I said, like a guy, folks like Joey who might not have grew up on that and might, not be their full cup of tea, or still bumping it because he's with Hit Boy. And really one of Nas's biggest criticisms over his whole career is beat selection. And he's done so much music. He's done classic after classic and has amazing beats, but his whole body of work, I wouldn't judge someone for saying it's been lackluster. And so meeting up with, we had that anticipation when we did the Kanye mixtape. Is this going to be the best Nas album beat-wise ever? And that shit fell short. And he teamed up with Hit Boy and gave us 4 doses. And so I think this one, like from the impact perspective, it's hard to gauge in itself, because now it's just like, which of these 4 releases, like how would you rank these 4 releases? These are all some of his best music he's probably ever dropped. How do you even rank the 4? And I think this one made that conversation even harder.
Man, I think it's very well said from both of you. And for me, what's crazy about this record is so much. I think just it's so hard to even kind of start, because number one, Nas even raps about, and I can't quite remember what record it is, but he kind of raps about it. He was like, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, me dropping albums back to back, like, you know what I'm saying? It's like 9-3, like 9-4 type, it's crazy right now. He even, kind of is sentient to it himself, but it's like, again, yeah, they're in a zone, like they're like somewhere where we're catching up still, you know what I'm saying? We I think you said like the impact is going to be hard to gauge. It's like I think we're going to be catching up like 2-3 years from now and look back at this and be like, what the fuck was really going on, like Hit Boy is just proving to be one of the not one of like literally the most prolific producer of this generation. The 2010s, the 2010s was a volatile time in rap and hip hop, bro. Like there was a lot of sound identity. I wouldn't say like issues, but there was a lot of like, is it gonna go this way? Is it gonna go? Should it stay this way? Like, is this region really valid? The Southern rap. Like there were a lot of things that were still kind of like emerging, falling back. You know, there was a lot of movement for Hit Boy to, lead a generation like that, producing hits for like Beyonce. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, Jay-Z and Kanye West, which is probably arguably the most, successful collab album of all time, Watch the Throne, the namesake hit, Niggas in Paris, like, literally producing like a sound for like that generation. And then 10 years later, like really doing it again. Like it's just crazy. Yeah, the record is just wild. And then just like you said, very inspiring. What they talking about is just so crazy, like how they galvanize each other creatively, obviously on track number 4, Michael and Quincy, like the real life like personification of that, him really rapping about like basically because he, how he referenced that like, you know what I'm saying, he feels like Hit Boy is the Quincy Jones is Michael Jackson, you know what I'm saying? So hearing him rap about that and like just like obviously just so many other things on that record is just crazy. And just some of the records like towards the bottom, like that Don't Shoot Till My Last Breath, like these records are super time like conscious of the time, and they mean something right now because of obviously things that are going on, larger social issues and things that are going on, but also just like within the culture itself. The album is of the culture as it is for the culture and is the culture in a sense. So yeah, this is one of those ones. I think that's the impact as well. Real quick, before we move on to this next one, I'm trying to find another one real quick that I think we all had on our list. Joey, I know that you had that Freddie Gibbs Soul Sold Separately on your list. Talk to me a little bit about just concept wise, how you were feeling about that record. I think that was on
You
yours
know,
as well, Mitch.
Mhm.
I get in these moods where I listen to rap, rap, bars, hard shit. And I don't know if it's a mood. I don't know if it's just the energy out there in the world, or maybe if it's just because I start seeing Freddie Gibbs going crazy on the internet. But all of it wrapped together, I like what I've been seeing and hearing from Freddie. I think I enjoy I enjoy the shit talking. I enjoy the music, and when I listen again, for me, what and this is where I'm not coming from the hip hop analyst. I'm just the uneducated fan who gives projects all the chance all the way through, and I like to be honest about what I listen to and enjoy it from whatever the art is, and just take it for it as is. I liked not necessarily every single song, because some of the songs that like from Freddie Gibbs where like he gets a little bit of that sing-songy auto-tuniness now these days. Some of those types of stuff I'm not a huge fan of, but bar for bar, rap line for line, rapping, I've really enjoyed that project, pretty through all the way through in terms of the concept, the content, and what the actual what he's talking about. So the Freddie Gibbs definitely in that project definitely makes my list of notable really solid hip hop releases for this year. And if you like actual rap, definitely one of the better hip hop releases for sure. And that for that lane, you know.
Mitch, let me know how you
Yeah.
feeling on the concept for this record and feature wise and what you think the impact is as well. Joey, appreciate you, doc. That was real sick.
Yeah, I've been a big Freddie Gibbs fan for a while. I like predominantly, since I first heard his mixtapes back off probably Dat Piff or sorry, Nah Right back in the day. I probably hosted on Dat Piff. I was definitely a fan and been a fan of a lot of his songs and his projects. Coming off of the back to back, the Mad Lib and the Alchemist kind of wave he was on, which I'm a big fan of because I'm a big fan of those producers. And it's dope to have like a gangster rapper rapping over, that kind of boom bap soul sample stuff. I know Griselda really is in that lane right now, and Freddie and Griselda are beefing, but still, I'm a big fan of that sound. But coming out of that, Triple S like definitely, still has elements of that, but it's like a little bit more back to the slap, a little bit more southern. You got the Moneybag Yo on the lead single on there, and like it's getting back to the slap that Gibbs puts out. And I like both. I like if he raps over a soul sample with no drums and is just rapping, that's fire. And then if he raps over, the song like Too Much, right, with Moneybag Yo, like that's definitely a whole vibe as well. So I like what he was doing. And I think concept wise, I mean, he learned from, or at least I think he learned from, working with Madlib and working with a single producer and then working with Alchemist. And it's funny, I think Alchemist even credited Currency for a lot of that. But the way Alchemist be putting out records, whether it's his own or collab, is doing the whole theme of the record match with the merch, and just like he gets a little bit less promo because he's producer, not behind the scenes more than in front of the camera. But that that hotel, that casino vibe that Gibbs went with, like in all the promotion and on the interlude, in the songs and everything, really tied in nice. And then it gave him that ability to do merch. And so I think he learned from working with Alchemist a way to kind of release a project in conjunction with products and have it all kind of this cohesive vibe. And so it was definitely dope to see that growth.
I think I first caught on to Freddie Gibbs, Babyface Killer era, BFK era.
Yeah.
It's amazing just to see the growth. Obviously, when he signed a major with Warner, it was like a long time coming, but it was at the same time, I think it felt right. It felt fitting. I think it was like, let's see what he can do now with a major behind him. And for the first, kind of glimpse of what that partnership really looks like, I think it's impressive what he was able to do with, what I'm saying, Soul Sold separately. The having DJ Paul, I got to attend the listening party because, what I'm saying, shout out to Aisha White, what I'm saying, shout out to Yashar, everybody over there at the Warner family, Deontay, appreciate y'all, what I'm saying. I had pulled up on the listening party, and they had DJ Paul there, and it was crazy when DJ Paul came out. It was just super authentic, you know what I'm saying. And I think that, what I'm saying, the whole, just throughout the record, even though some of those features are kind of, I wouldn't necessarily say customary or what you would think Freddie Gibbs, who he would rap with, but they all went crazy, obviously, and so I think just seeing again, yeah, like you said, the evolution, it's amazing. Yeah, that was definitely a dope record. It wasn't on my list, but it was definitely one of those ones. And I think I actually had it in my honorable mentions, and we'll hit that next after we talk about this next album, which I think is one of the last albums that we all, well, I wouldn't say all because I don't think it was John Joey's list, but at least me and you, Mitch, we synced up on, and that was Pusha T's "It's Almost Dry." I'm gonna get into this one real quick because for me it was really like I'm not gonna lie, bro, and this is call it whatever, however you want to call it, be it as it may, but like as the Pusha T and Drake beef, kind of really started to kind of unravel and everything, I found myself kind of, I wouldn't say like distancing myself from Pusha T, but I wasn't necessarily actively like listening to Pusha T's music or like really watching what he was doing, because really I was watching what Drake was doing. I was listening to Drake's music, and I always loved like King Push, you know what I'm saying. New God Flow is quite possibly one of like my favorite rap records, hip hop records of like all time for real. That's such a crazy ass record. But It's Almost Dry for me was just concept wise, it really solidified it for me that like Pusha T is the best at this shit, and specifically this shit. It's, you know what I'm saying, you could call it the coke raps, you know what I'm saying, the narco wave, whatever, however you want to call it, like, you know what I'm saying. Pusha T is getting it off the freebase, the bars. He's the guy that's really, you know what I'm saying, doing it at a high level. Like, it's elevated. It's, you know what I'm saying, it's grimy, but it's polished. It's just everything that you know, kind of he's really symbolized throughout all the evolutions, you know, the different stages in his career. You know what I'm saying? That Brambleton record was just crazy. Let the Smokers Shine the Coupe, obviously just wild. For a long time, it was like, for me, like for a while, it was like, okay, Push has been doing this, but is it still cool? Like, and is it like, why is it cool? He's, you know, rapping over a lot of these obscure kind of samples, you know, the references, you know. And this album, again, like I said, reaffirmed it for me that, again, like I said, I feel like he is the best at this, impact wise. And you know what I'm saying? Just from the perspective of like, I get it now. I get it again. Like, it really does make sense. It really is incredibly creative, and just super uh representative of who he's been, you know, his entire career, you know. And so to see the you know, the accolades that it's been getting, the nominations and things that it's gotten, um I think it made sense. You know what I'm saying? Mitch, how'd you feel about that? Well, actually, Joe, you shook your head like yes when I started talking about the record. So yeah, yeah. What you got to say,
I'm
man?
agreeing with you from like an impact standpoint and how big it was, but I honestly wasn't a fan. Like, you know, if you could find the negatives in the actual stuff, I used to typically like Pusha T and all that, and I thought this was worse than previously. This is just me. I listened to it like once, maybe twice, and I was like, yeah, I'm cool off that. This is like a worse version of himself. I could hear why some of it was bang. You know, some of the popular ones were popular though. You know what I mean? Like from like oh, it's Pusha T. I'm a fan. Oh, that shit's, you know, it's what he does. Like, and some of like maybe the singles were okay, but like and the features were the features. But like from wow, he knocked it out the park. Nah, not the one. I listened to a bunch of other music way more, and I listened to his last project way more than I listened to this project. So that hard to keep it on the list. Hard to keep it on the top one for me.
Okay. I feel it. I understand. Mitch, where you stand with it?
Man, I just think you know, it's a culmination of a lot of places he's been, right? Like obviously he just parted with good music and you know, denounced Kanye West just recently, but when this album came out it was a little bit different circumstance, still the president of good music, and was rocking with Ye pretty heavy. But obviously, you know, we know Pusha T because of the clips, and we know the clips because of the Neptunes. And so having an album kind of split produced by the Neptunes and Kanye West was definitely like where he's from and where he's at the same part, and kind of giving you two sides, the good music side and the clips Neptune. And so you obviously, and he got No Malice, you know, his brother Malice on the record, so to make it, you know, full circle. And so I just thought that was a cool concept to split the production half and half, especially from those people. And you know, anyone else you could be like, well, that's two of the hottest hip hop producers of all time. Of course that's awesome, but you know, it's super relevant to his journey and his craft, obviously, and his, you know, his career, working with those two producers who also happen to be some of the biggest and hottest producers of all time. And so that was fire. And then obviously got another record with Jay on there. And every time Pusha T and Dre and Jay do a record is stupid. You know, like I'll still say Drug Dealers Anonymous, like one of my, I know that wasn't the one on this. That's one of my favorite records probably of all time now. I burned that record a lot still to this day. And then the joint they did off this, I played quite a bit too. But I will say the one thing about that, and it's not Pusha T's no slouch, but you know, Jay be eating him on those features, man. On both times he got ate by Jay, man. So I know maybe he doesn't think that way, but he got ate by Jay on both times, man, back to back. So
You know what, man? You're a brave man. You're a brave man to say that on wax, bro. You say a brave man to say that on wax, but
I'm not saying
I
you got
feel you. I
completely
feel you.
washed, but Jay had the better verse on
Jay
each
did
song,
eat.
man.
Jay did eat that verse. He did eat that verse. That was a crazy verse. That had the internet going crazy. That had the internet going wild for a couple of days. Uh, Real quick, I'm gonna run through my whole list top to bottom, and then I'm gonna pass it over to you guys to run it over your list top to bottom, and then we're gonna get into the honorable mentions, our heat seeker picks, um, and then round it out with our indie spotlight. But again, 2022 Droptop Hip-Hop review. You know what I'm saying? We hear my guys at Respect My Region, man. Shout out to the gang. You know what I'm saying? Drops Media. We here locked in. And shout out to Encore, man. Make sure y'all clapping the Encore for the recap show. It's going live on New Year's Eve. My 2022 Droptop Hip-Hop review top 15 list +1. You know what I'm saying? Because that's how it is out here. You know how it is. Event culture +1. You always get a +1. So brought a friend. But obviously we talked about Kendrick Lamar, Mr. Morale, and the Big Steppers, Pusha T, It's Almost Dry, Nas and Hit Boy, KD3. Obviously some solid records. Vince Staples, Ramona Park Broke My Heart. We also talked about that. It was a crazy record. On these next two for me, they were just you know what I'm saying? I think they just did what they did. Future, I Never Liked You was another number one album. I think that was his fourth consecutive number one album. I might have to check the numbers, you know what I'm saying? But it's somewhere up there. And you know, for a guy like Future, starting out in 2012, Pluto debut album, it's just amazing to see that arc. Lucky, that Flawless Like Me, man, that record really surprised me. I'm a fan of Lucky, and I've been a fan of what he does and how he raps and who he's been for a while. But this was really like a whole like update, you know, like iOS upgrade for, you know, his identity. And I think it really put a spotlight on him. You know, the internet was buzzing. His fans made noise. His fans made new fans with this record, and I think he's really gonna have another, you know, a big year as a result of that record. West Side Boogie, More Black Superheroes. That was a great album. I loved it from top to bottom. It was hard. I think there were bangers, but then there was just like the real rap records, the way that he's in his pocket. I think that there wasn't this like, you know, kind of like, oh, is it kind of tight? Is it kind of, you know, flat? Or I think it was all really there. It was well put together, and it was just dope. It was an amazing moment, I think, for him, and I think it's gonna be a dope within his discography. We
I
talked
should have
about
added
Hurt
that
Lock,
one to my list. That's one I should have added to my list. I totally
Boogie's.
yeah, that was one that like when I was at it when I was texting you last second, like trying to throw ones on there real quick. Like that's one that I was like, oh shit, one more, you know, like damn. But you got
Wow,
it though, so
wow.
it made it. Shout out to Boogie.
I'm excited that Boogie could bring us together because you know what I'm saying, you be on some fuck shit sometimes, Joey. But you know what I'm saying, I still fuck with you, my man's though. You
Wow,
dig?
let them know though. I
Uh,
got my own music, you know. If I could listen to Nipsey every day, I kind of would. It's all good.
No, I fuck with it. I fuck with it. We when we mobbing out, we definitely be vibing. He put me on some shit. I be listening. He be putting me on some shit. I be listening for sure, for sure.
Come on.
Um, Another record that I thought was really great that just came out recently, Metro Boomin's Heroes and Villains, bro. That record was crazy. I think as far as like producer records, I was on par with like what, you know, Khaled's God did. You know what I'm saying? Hey, Metro did. You dig? Like real life, he did his thing, bro. The features on there is crazy. People was talking about it. It was inspired all kind of fucking memes and shit. Like it's just crazy, and it's just real anthemic. I think like like he made a fucking soundtrack. That wasn't like a album, bro. That was like a soundtrack, like to like it was a whole cinematic moment. And I think that's kind of why he did like the, you know, the whole rollout with like the, you know, the DC like comics and shit like that, kind of like because it's real cinematic the way that it sounds, and he produces like that. Metro is that guy. You know what I'm saying? If Metro don't trust you, I'm gonna shoot you. So that was one of them ones. Larry June, Spaceships on a Blade, self-explanatory. Numbers. You dig?
Another one I should have included, but I slept on it on adding it.
Man, LJ's doing numbers. I'm excited to see. I hope he does another run like he did. And I want to say it was 19 when he did like 7 or 8 mixtapes. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? Man, that was such a run. I love that. I hope to see him do something like that in 23 because we fuck with Big LJ, but for that to be like the type of record that it was, like a real lock-in studio album, it was a real solid vibe. Um, I think I gotta give this one Yeet, man. I gotta give him at least one. I think I can't remember exactly how many records Yeet put out this year. I want to say it was 4. Um, I'm trying to look it up right now. 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, yeah, like three projects, I think, or yeah, 3 albums this year, something crazy like that. But man, Yeet really for me is I think kind of one of these guys who's going to be the superstar of the next of his of his generation, of this next generation. We're gonna look
Bro,
up 4 or 5 years from now,
Yeet
and I think he's gonna be.
Yeet changed the world. Not for me personally. Like I don't like he didn't touch me in a way that's like wow, like Yeet. But I can confirm that people treat Yeet like he could be like a famous alien. Like he's a famous just thing in the earth, on the earth. Like Yeet, people are addicted to Yeet. It's wild. He's on some XXX Tentacion type of shit.
Mitch,
But
how do you
like
feel about that?
I don't like, but like not on like the music though. Like like
I don't. I haven't listened to him too much. I definitely checked out a couple records and I mess with it, but it's just not my vibe. You know what I'm saying? Like
me neither.
definitely impact. But I can't. I won't speak on too much stuff that I'm just not
TikTok went
privileged to
crazy.
speak on.
Impact undeniable.
Dog. Yee is everywhere, and I think it's gonna stay like that because I think there's
Malls
just so
all
many
over
different.
America play Yeet.
I think there's so many different directions that he can getting on that Minions track. Come on, bro. Getting on the Minions track, bro. Was that
Facts.
a Pixar movie? Was it? Come on. I mean, that's
Yeah.
just a
News
monumental,
stations across America talked about Yeet.
bro. Dog did the Minions soundtrack single record, bro. That's crazy. Like, so
Crazy.
I truly think that this guy, it's the reason that he's captivating these people, he's touching these people, is because of just what he's doing with the sound and how it's hitting people. You know what I'm saying? It's hitting different right now, and so I think he's got a kind of a long runway for what he can do with this and where he can go with it. And so that's one of the reasons why I put Two Alive on there. I felt like it was one of his best showings this year. I think there's some records on there. I think that Young Thug record he did with him Outside, that's a fucking crazy record. Play that when you get some time. Yeet, Young Thug, Outside. Tell me what you think, Joey. I think you would fuck with that. Coi Leray, for me, I'm gonna just boldly just be like, I love her music. I've loved her music for probably like 2-3 years now. I think that even though this record did what it sold, we saw some records not sell very well this year, but artists still have singles that do very well. And I think this is the case with her. She's got a couple singles that are going crazy right now. You know what I'm saying? The Grandmaster Flash, sampling record and linking up with what I'm saying, the Furious Five, and Grandmaster, it's just crazy. That record there, Trendsetter had a few songs on there that I really loved. I love that Clingy record. I like when she raps and sings. She's real versatile. She's talented. She did that Nicki Minaj collaboration this year, Blick Blick. I think she's been co-signed by people because what she can really be, bro, and I think she can really take it there as well. So I think she's going to be one of those superstars in the next generation as well. um Really surprised me, Nav, Demons Protected by Angels. This was a solid album. There was a bunch of bangers from top to bottom. When that full Nav said that was Speedy, like, I could see why motherfuckers don't like me, like all this shit, like it could seem arrogant, but like bro's popping his shit because he really is on his shit. And I can definitely see him really, like he's saying, like he's locked in the studio, he's just like getting better. I can only imagine what he has in the vault. And so I'm excited to see where this goes. I would love to see him like do like a collab with like a collab album and like hear how that goes, because this album is hard as fuck, for real. Like Loaded, Count on Me intro, Last of the Mohicans, uh, uh, man, the major single, the first single off this joint, they was just all crazy to me. So Nav, Demons Protected by Angels, another hard record. Smino, Love for Rent, dog. Smino's that guy. I really consider him the Midwest, being from the Midwest, you know what I'm saying? Growing up in Colorado, going to school in Iowa, like, adjacent to Missouri, like St. Louis, like to claim this guy, I really claim this guy as the Midwest. And I think he's making some of the best music in the industry right now, dog. No L's, 90 proof with the J. Cole feature. There's just so many points on this fucking record. And then he just shines on it on his own. Dude is so cool and smooth and just has so many different, his own stylistic nuances. It's just a dope project. The J. Cole, speaking of J. Cole, that J. Cole feature, the J. Cole Dreamville D-Day Against the Girls mixtape. That one was fire, super fire. That ends out my list. Self-explanatory. J. Cole, Jid. The whole yeah. Speaking of Jid, that Stick record out there, that record,
That shit was crazy. Shit was crazy.
It was so crazy during festival season, and it dropped like perfect time. So, and then Jid having the Never Story. Jid's project was crazy. I should have added that one on there, but that rounds out my list. Mitch, why don't you pop yours up there and run through it real quick, and then we'll pass it over to Joey and let him anchor it off. What you drinking, Joey? What you sipping on?
Doubt. Wanda.
We drink.
Yeah. So I mean, my list, that Jid record you mentioned, that's definitely up there too, man. That was I respect his artistry a lot. I do feel like at times, like his sound and where he's at, it's a little bit like, I think if I was younger, I'd vibe with it a lot harder. Just like the life experiences and stuff he speaks on, but he's got a cool creative vibe. I think that's progressed from a lot of the sound that I really like, but kind of taking it to a new spot. But again, I feel a little old when I listen to his shit. But on my list, man, Kendrick, we already talked about that. Drake and 21 Savage, we talked about that. Vince Staples, we talked about that. Nas, we talked about that. Gibbs, we talked about that. But then, Rock Marciano and The Alchemist, The Elephant Man's Bones. I'm a big fan of Rock Marcy. He makes beats and he raps, and he just has this like really chill like vibe. It's real like mafioso gangster rap, like gangster movie, gangster flick rap, right? And I grew up liking soul music, hip hop, especially the sample soul music and gangster flicks, and I feel like that's a lot of the inspiration for a lot of his sound. Alchemist has been one of my favorite producers since I was a kid, and I grew up making beats. So definitely just like the sonic vibe he's on. And so when Alchemist and Rock get together, it's definitely a dope vibe. Joey and I watched them play live at Boston Cannabis Week this year. And as much as I like that album, I honestly, it's one of the few, a lot of times in rap music, the album is much doper than the show. I don't attend a lot of shows because honestly, it doesn't really hit the same way, but that album sounded doper live than it sounded on wax, and Alchemist was spinning for him. So I really liked that, really appreciated that album. Pusha T, we talked about that. Another one, El Camino and Chase Fetty, Bethlehem. El Camino, he's like one of the lesser known dudes out of the Griselda camp from like upstate New York. But man, Camino put out like 4 to 6 albums this year, between albums, EPs, and then obviously this was a collaborative album. A couple of them, Let There Be Light was the single, the solo album from El Camino that I wanted to put on here. I honestly think it was a better body of work, but much like Joey said, when I was looking at my top records, I definitely was really paying attention to my Spotify data, what I spend the most. And I definitely, according to, grading stuff, I might put, and like I said, there might be another album of his I put more, but I spun a lot of records off this Bethlehem joint a lot of times, and I still bump it. And Camino definitely is on that rapping over Ghostface Killer, Griselda style vibe. I grew up on Ghostface and really like Griselda, so he's definitely in that pocket. Ab Soul, Herbert, it's a new album, relatively new, but a lot of people been waiting on that Kendrick. Schoolboy is kind of getting talked about. He put the Soccer Dad single out as the next TDE guy, but Ab Soul's one not to be forgotten. I like that album, what he did, we waited for it, but he definitely gave you something worth waiting for. And I gotta say, I was telling you, Devon, the other day, that Good Man record, his verse on that and that beat is just nuts, man, nuts. I've listened to that at least 30 times since it's dropped. And rounded out my list, man, French Montana, Montega, which is weird. I was telling you too, French has been one of my guilty pleasures. Hitting him with the French, he's got
Coke boys. Hey,
Coke boys. He got a lot of them, like, kind of club radio records that you can tell is like, that DJ Khaled method. Like, let's just buy the hottest producer, buy the hottest feature, probably bot farm it up so it gets high up in the algorithm, right? Like, no disrespect to French. Some of his records he's known for, I feel like, are just manufactured. But anytime him and Harry Fraud get together is an undeniable vibe, man. Undeniable vibe. And they linked up quite a bit on this album. And just the way it starts out with that Blue Pills, like that record is just peak Harry Fraud and French, and very much just this quality sonic album ready like mode. And then the Rushmore pack is heat. That's another one of the star ones. And then the record with Benny the Butcher and Jadakiss is fire. But I will say Jadakiss ate everybody on that record. I could spin his
Jadakiss gonna eat everybody on every record, bro.
I mean,
it's Kiss, dog.
But it's a record still where it's French Montana and Jadakiss, which should be no competition. Like, I'm gonna skip French and listen to Jada, but I listen to French, set the tone for that record, and then Jada comes in and eats. And so I don't know, man. That was another one that, like, is it really in the best album made? I don't know, but I can't argue with how much I listened to it, man. Like, that shit was definitely heat to me. And so that's my list, man.
First of all, great list, Mitch. Before we get into the next list, I do want to add to, you talk about French. Number one, we were talking about it, man. French is really, he is one of the vets in the game right now. Like, you got to put, when you talk about guys like, and I mean, it's crazy. You saw the headline just recently, NBA young boy never broke again, saying that, French was in his top 5. I mean, I think when you talk about like guys from like, basically our generation, right? You think about guys like 50 Cent, Jay-Z, Kanye, you kind of have to put French somewhere near that, like Rick Ross, like French is somewhere near that. If he's not in that immediate kind of like circle, he's adjacent. And like, I think about that remember when him and Rick Ross and Drake teamed up on Stay Scheming, bro? Mm-hmm. Stay Scheming, dog. I'm telling you, like, that record went crazy. I mean, Drake's verse, like, that was like kind of like, no. We'll talk about that at a later.
That was early. I was telling you, I remember Cocaine City DVDs in 07, 08, maybe even 06, like early. I remember French Montana. That was my introduction to French Montana. But then you look at his relevance, man. He's been, like you said, I'll never, ever best rapper, at the art of rapping and rhyming, I would never put him towards the top of the list. But in terms of putting out hits and relevant music, he's been doing that for well over a decade, and that's not, like, I think you were saying it yesterday, bro. He's not getting the respect he's due, because that alone, to have that level of longevity and still be a factor in contributing, bro, that's not common, man. That's not common.
Straight up.
Killing
it. How you feel about French?
Killing it still. Not gonna make my list because I'm not slapping it like that, but he killed it. They did kill it. Everything you said was true, both of y'all on that shit. All right.
Okay.
Now we're over on my list. Here we go. So obviously her loss, crazy. Talked about that already. 2 Chainz, talked about that already. I've been riding around listening to Lil Durk like crazy the last 2 years. This year was no different. Was a huge fan of that project as well. Obviously, anything, with the Migos we're listening to from like a culture standpoint, impact standpoint, this for me was no different. Was
real quick before we get into the Metro, I want to I want to talk about 2 things real quick. Lil Durk and Quavo and Takeoff. That record was so amazing, and It's just it's a hurtful moment in hip hop, and I'm hoping that we can move forward sometime. But I think it's amazing that we could get that album from Quavo and Takeoff. You know what I'm saying? In that way, it was incredible. And then as far as for Lil Durk, 7220 was such a moment. I saw him at the Apple Music Live concert, the screening of it, like the actual filming of it, here in Los Angeles at Red Studios. They invited like the fans, obviously, that they invited out to see, that got the tickets, but then they also invited out media and whatnot. And dog, it was crazy to see like that huge production, Apple, just dedicating the whole hour and a half or whatever the concert was to Dirk and his hits, and like listening to the hits and knowing them and the range of those hits, and the range within really a decade almost, really, that these hits were coming from. It's incredible to see Dirk at this peak, and he is at this point one of the biggest artists in the world right now. I did an interview with Duty Low of OTF as well. The Loyal Bros 2 record just came out a couple weeks back, the OTF compilation. And Duty basically was just saying like, yeah, dog, it's wild to be here right now. Dirk is one of the biggest artists in the world right now, and to see how he moving and to see how what he's doing is just making everybody else around just go crazy and elevate. So
Yeah.
Dirk has had a moment.
The impact of those are just absolutely crazy. And then the artists came in and did exactly what they were supposed to do and were on point. They were sharp. It was good content. It was catchy. It was not, if it wasn't catchy, then it was impactful and it was powerful, and they executed. It was like a sharp knife doing what it was supposed to do on every aspect of the track. Um, these guys are going into the booth and they're surgeons with it in their own way every time on every single track. So I really enjoyed that from both of them. And then obviously the impact, RIP to Takeoff. Um, it's that right there alone. It's just like we only going to get so much more. There's only so much music. You know what I mean? So to just listen to that and be able to really take that in, I had to include that just because that's something that I'm listening to still, still riding around right now. Metro Boomin, that was a last minute. That it's in the middle of my list and up there and all that, but like this isn't like by any means like mine isn't like ranked or rated, top 10 or whatever it is by any means. But that Metro Boomin one was. I love, like you said earlier, it was like a movie. It was cinematic, right? It was crazy. It was like. Uh, it was just really wild to listen to that all the way through and to think about and to just think about it and to truly listen to it all comparatively to just like sit there ride around and just jam out. It was a different vibe throughout that, so I wanted to include that. Was a big fan of the people that were on that. We talked about Nas King's Disease impact again on that. Freddie Gibbs. I wanted to include some of the Griselda-ness that's out there because I go to Freddie for certain types of rap. I go to them for certain types of rap. I go to, I don't even, Lil Durk for certain types of rap. Lil Baby for certain types of rap. Roddy Ricch isn't anything like that. Those guys, you know what I mean? They're on my list. He's on my list. So it's like, I go to all these people for different things. And Freddie this year was fire. I only bring up Griselda because I just keep hearing him talk shit about academics and then Griselda. So it's just that's the shit talking this year between them. DJ Khaled, God did. No one's better at generating hype than DJ Khaled, and then I'd call it manufacturing now. The biggest artist in the world at the time being on the project. I also enjoy DJ Khaled and what he's doing in his brand. It's fun to watch. Undeniably, he has to be on the list. Young Dolph, Paper Route Frank. Shit, man. R.I.P. Dolph. So, I fucking ride around bumping Dolph music and was super excited to get new music to listen to. And I've been bumping that nonstop right now. Roddy Ricch, Feed the Streets 3. I've been a fan of Roddy for a couple years. now I'm not less a fan of the radio hits, more a fan of the other music. And this one was not so great in terms of like overall impact out there. It's not a, oh my gosh, Kendrick dropped this. Oh my gosh, DJ Khaled is, it's booming it. Like Roddy does his own thing, and but I personally listened to like 2 or 3 of these songs pretty frequently, and so that was I had to include Roddy. Here in LA, I hear him. I hear it all over the place. CMG the label, Gangsta Art, man. CMG's on top of the world as a label right now. Like they're just how they're doing it, the amount of artists, who the artists they got are, and how fire they're all killing it, the music that they're all dropping. It just feels like bang, 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 tidal wave, CMG. At any given moment, they could drop like fire from anybody on their team, and that shit is gonna be worth listening to. And then I had to include 42 Doug and ESTG. Additionally, on top of CMG, the label there, because they dropped a collab album. Speaking of the collab albums, they dropped a collab album, and I fucking bumped this basically all year long. So that's my list.
I'm not mad at your list. I'm not mad at your list, Joey. I think this is a real solid list. Real quick before we get into the next list, which I think is the Heat Seekers list, and y'all feel free to ad lib and throw in a couple. You already know what it is, man. Shout out to my guys that respect my region, Joey, Mitch. Appreciate y'all, man. Drops Media here for the first annual 2022 Droptop Hip-Hop review. Shout out to Encore, man. Make sure y'all clap into the show on New Year's Eve, December 31st. Run it back. You already know what it is. Let's get into this Heat Seekers list. Real quick, I just put together what I thought was just, and I say Heat Seekers list because, I think these are albums that, maybe not a lot of people were checking for, or either you were checking for them, you know what I'm saying? You were looking for them, or, just things that I thought, maybe they should be on your radar if they weren't on your radar because, Heat Seekers, they always looking for something to, to bump, you know what I'm saying? They're looking for some fire. So, you know what I'm saying? Pack up, burn down, you feel me? So, the top real quick, I had Seti Hendrix joint. That is crazy. I think he just got signed to Generation Now with DJ Drama. But yeah, that Well Said joint was crazy. I loved it. Jay Worthy and Harry Fraud. You take the credit, we'll take the check. Jay Worthy, I've been just a fan of what he's been doing real heavy, obviously here in LA, you know what I'm saying, for a good few years now. And I just thought that this record was dope, you know what I'm saying? Harry Fraud behind it, the features, Layer June, Kamaya. It was just a real dope vibe. Like Jay Worthy, he's definitely found a good pocket and lane for his sound. And so this album was real representative of that, and showcased that. Peter's son, Red Bull Records signee, I did an interview with him in August. Y'all go ahead, check that out on Drops Media. The record was super dope. Butterfly, which is like I think the first record on there, was like in my top records, top spins for Spotify for the year. It's just a real dope record. It's got like R&B and jazz influence, but it's a rap record. It's a real rap record, and it's hard. And I mess with Peter. He's a dope dude. Shout out to bruh. Phone calls give me anxiety. That's definitely a Heat Seekers pick. I'm Shorty More Than Music Part 2. There were a bunch of bangers on this album, like literally a bunch of bangers. I mean, I'm a fan of Shorty. I mean, obviously, I think the whole world became a fan of Shorty back in 2019 when fucking Obituary came out and shit like that. But I think this album was really dope. Can't Party Here No More was one of my favorite. Obviously, Body Language was a fan favorite. He got that Bossa Nova Offset feature for that record Bossa Nova, which was really dope to hear them two on that same record. He got the Rich Homie Quan feature on that record, The Wire. Talk about the comeback for Rich Homie Quan. I think we should put his project on here as well because that record is crazy. Shout out to my man Too Tall. He produced a bunch of records for Rich Homie Quan's new album that just dropped. But The Wire, man, that collab that he did with Rich Homie Quan, if you haven't heard that, boy, you better go check it out, dog. I'm talking about Rich gang vibes for sure. That joint is crazy, man. But then, like Morning in LA, Mamacita. It was just filled with bangers. So Shorty More Music Part 2, that joint was fire. Rob Banks, man, Falconia. Rob Banks is one of South Florida's is South Florida's finest. He started out. I think he's one of the innovators of that wave, the South Florida rap wave. You know, I think because guys like Denzel Curry are killing it is because like Rob Banks and guys like that like really got it out the mud in the mixtape age and really like kind of like put a light on like kind of like that new generation of Broward rap, because really for a long time it was just Ace Hood, right? You know what I'm saying? So Rob Banks, Falconia, that joint was crazy. We also got the interview up on Drops Media channel from earlier this year. Shout out to Encore. We did that interview at Encore. He did a performance at Encore, and it was super lit too. Cousin Stiz, I'm a big fan of Cousin Stiz. Just for
Boston.
you. Yep. Boston stand up. Man, Cousin Stiz, that Just for You, that record was hard. There was just a bunch of records on there. LBS, Little Boy Shit. Man, just a bunch of records on there, man. Go ahead, check that out, man. Cousin Stiz. I added this like last minute because Sauce Walker, man, TSF business, bro. It's the biggest, man. And I was like, and I was thinking, man, because anytime Sauce Walker drop, I'm gonna pay attention because I'm a fan. And this one obviously is having a moment right now, Like the internet is buzzing, people saying it's one of the best projects of the year, and he's really rapping on it. So I still got time. I still need time to sit with this record, but Sauce Walker, Ghetto Gospel 3, like I said, TSF, the business, man. Biggest business, man. You know what it is. Heat Seekers as a 2022 Droptop Hip-Hop review, Heat Seekers picks. Y'all got anything to add to that?
Man, I'm not sure. Heat Seeker, like someone I would have put on there would have been you put it on your list, but Boogie. I thought he did a great album. I think he's put a lot of great music, but I don't think the world's quite there yet with him. So I'd put that on there. I'd even put potentially a Conway the Machine's release this year. Again, I know he's reached a little bit higher than this level, but not everyone knows who he is. He put a pretty solid body of work out. I put West Side Gun in that same vein. I feel like Benny the Butcher's the one out of those three that really burst a little bit further with the Rock Nation cosign. But Guns had some tight stuff. I'm trying to think of other artists, on that level. I don't know. It's kind of escaping me right.
Yeah, I think the Conway the Machine one really stands out there. I think that one's one that makes sense to be added in. I saw JID, JID.
Oh yeah.
Yep, he needed to be. He should have. I didn't. I like that Stick song, but other than that, it wasn't. I liked other music more. So that was maybe one that could have been added. Other than that, I kind of liked what everybody had on their stuff. We're all unique and diverse in what we listen to. We are lacking in a little bit of like the NBA YoungBoy type of stuff. But other, and maybe the younger generation, but for where we're at in our lives, that makes sense. So shout out to all the young rappers getting it in, all the young hustlers getting it in. Shout out to all the, you know what I'm saying, and everybody else on up. You feel me? Because it's fun to listen to all y'all shit.
Sure,
I like
to
smoke and bump y'all shit. So appreciate y'all for dropping fire.
Speaking of the young guns, hey, throw up that indie picks. We'll run through the indie picks. We'll talk some indie picks and we'll round it out, man, for the first ever edition of the 2022 Droptop Hip-Hop review. Respect My Region, Drops Media in here. Shout out to my guy Joey. He looking real cozy over there. My guy Mitch. Hey. Salute you, brother. Again, 2022 Droptop Hip-Hop review. Indie Spotlight, man. I put together this list. Just some cats that I really think have major potential. I just like, you know what I'm saying, or I'm really like tapping into. First cat out of Detroit, Rewind Raps. He's got this record called R&B, and plug and B, whatever you want to call it. You know what I'm saying? Probably if you're not familiar with like, guys like, Booth Pack Mookie or like Tony Snow, there's a whole movement of this. And I think that it's kind of like the best way to describe it is like an evolution of what SoundCloud rap kind of was in 14 to 16. You know what I'm saying? But Rewind, he's really in a lane of his own. and I think he kind of has the potential to like make that like crazy defining sound that like you hear some of these guys like Autumn or Sofago or like what I'm saying, even like what Yeet popped off with. I think he has the potential for like he has that type of real potent, you know what I'm saying, identity sound with it, and especially with this record R&B. So that was a dope one for me. We got a couple Midwest guys, Absolute P, Paid Style King, super dope, like freestyle type record. He produced all the records on that joint. It's crazy. Young Lord Messiah's Story. Put a lot of real money behind this record. And it was just a rap record. I think it was like 18 tracks deep. Both of these guys really surprised me from really being in the Midwest, really being in the trenches, and really, you know what I'm saying, just like working primarily on advancing their own creative sound. So really had to mention those. Really circling back to Detroit again, my guy Kendall Dewan, Half Zip, that joint was crazy. I think it was like 10 or 11 tracks, all fire. Produced it as well. He engineered it as well. Hard. My man Yada Man, he's actually tied in with Stolly's Blue Collar Gang record label. I think this was a joint release for him and his home team, which is called Off Brand Inc. Yada Man Jacket Weather, real dope project. There's a Dizzy Wright feature on there. There's a Mick Jenkins feature on there. Bro is really rapping. He's really like that. I think he's got some stuff coming in the next year. So y'all be on the lookout for Yada, man. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, under Stolly, Blue Collar Gang, been working with him for a minute. So yeah, go check that out. I should have added Stolly's new record on my Heat Seekers list, because that's definitely one to go check out too as well. So Marco Solo, this record's called Drive. He's actually based out here in LA. Real dope cat. Caught onto him within like the Web3 community. He's been making a few moves out there, and just the style of the record, it kind of reminds me of like, I don't even want to say Mac, because I'm saying RIP Mac, he was incredible, but like kind of like that feel good type of like rap, like of some of his earlier stuff. It's real instrumental. It's very like inspired by rap, so it's rap by nature, right? And it's a vibe. Rounding out the list, we got a West Coast producer, rapper. He did like a compilation type joint, Trapping in the Winter 2. I forgot the 2 on the graphic, but you know what I'm saying, it's all good. It's Trapping in the Winter 2. It's real fire, man. There's some dope features on there. Speedy from LA, Speedy for LA, Phoenix Flexion's on there, formerly the Shoreline Mafia, Matt Moyes. There's a bunch of dope records on here, so y'all make sure to go check that out. I know that Joey had a couple indie picks he wanted to get off real quick. Joey, why don't you drop them in the chat real quick?
Seattle, the what was it, Mitch? The Mike Jack 3200. Who was the other guy?
Yeah. Mike Jack 3200 is who someone you mentioned. So I say
Lupe was the other one.
I say Mafi D did the 1522 album this year. That was recent release. Louis, I'm Only Human, out of Tacoma, super fire. And then Heat Seekers, I forgot. I would put La Russell, man. One of La Russell's albums up in Heat Seeker. I know he put a lot of content out, but
Yeah,
La Russell.
Yeah, that's a good call right there for sure.
Yeah, that's definitely a great call. 100%. I feel that, man. I feel that. Well, I think we got some. We got a lot of. We got a lot of work to do for 2023, because I think we can probably double this output. But I think for 2022, this was a good a good year in review. You know what I'm saying? Before we hop off, I just want to say, number one, shout out to my guys that Respect My Region, Joey, Mitch. I appreciate y'all, man. Drops Media, we here, man. Shout out to Encore. Make sure y'all clap into the show. Like I said, New Year's Eve, December 31st. You know what I'm saying? This is it. We just did the first ever Droptop Hip-Hop review. You know what I'm saying? For the best hip-hop releases of the year. We're going to be back next year. We'll make sure we flood, socials throughout New Year's Eve with all the clips of this, our hot takes, you know what I'm saying? But in any rate, you know what I'm saying? I just want to tell everybody, you know what I'm saying? Happy New Year's. Y'all get ready for another crazy year in music. You know, we're going to be here covering it. I'm signing out, man. I appreciate y'all, Joey, Mitch. Let the people know what it is.
Happy New Year's. We appreciate y'all. Shout out to Drops Media.
Drops Media, RespectMyRegion.com. We out.